You're watching The Roach on Florida TV.
So you've been very honest with your reporting on the coronavirus, and you've been very direct that China is to blame for this pandemic. Tell me about that.
Well, on the show, we actually have started calling it the CCP virus, the Chinese Communist Party virus, to make it clear that it's really not China or the Chinese people, because then the Chinese Communist Party will use that to make a whole claim about racism. It's the Chinese Communist Party that is at fault for this virus, so it should be called the CCP virus. But for those of you who don't really know how for those listening who don't really know how the coronavirus began, basically in December, you started hearing reports of this pneumonia-like disease going around Wuhan, China, where that was the main city, as like 58 million people, province of 58 million, Hubei province. And you saw them do exactly what they did back in 2003, 2004 with the SARS epidemic. Local officials began, covering it up. They censored any mention of this mysterious illness on Chinese social media. Doctors who started talking about it, they were silenced. They were sent to the police and said, quit spreading rumors. That's what they use a lot, spreading rumors. And as this illness started to get worse and worse and start to spread more and more because they weren't doing anything to stop it, then you see them talking about it, but, being like, don't worry, it's not human-to-human transmissible. They got the World Health Organization to delay a long time in declaring a public health emergency. They argued against any kind of travel bans, putting people in quarantine who might have been in this area of China. They fought hard against that. And they got the World Health Organization to say, don't do travel bans. And, take a look. Taiwan, they were on it right away. Italy, they were like, well, the World Health Organization is saying we shouldn't do travel bans, so let's not do travel bans.
Right.
And Italy was hit very hard. So the spread happened because the Chinese Communist Party was more concerned about stability maintenance and, silenced it at the time when it was the most, they could have done the most to prevent a global pandemic that we're in now. I mean, their numbers, early on, the numbers they were reporting were so low at a time when numbers were already beginning to spread around the world. And you had, experts around the world being like, wait a minute, it cannot be spreading globally like it is with those numbers in China. And now they're saying there are no new cases. You just can't trust them.
So do you just think they just knew what the numbers were and they were just saying something else?
Well, it's such an opaque system that encourages cover-ups. Local officials, their whole career is dependent on making sure everything looks good. So, for example, in the 90s, there was a big AIDS epidemic in China because of the sketchy blood transfusion, this blood plasma selling scheme. And the province this happened in was being run by a guy named Li Keqiang. He successfully covered that up, which meant that AIDS spread through a lot of villages in China, killing a lot of people. But he covered it up, so it didn't really get out there. And now he's the premier of China. So when an official in the Chinese Communist Party is able to cover something up, that means promotion. Of course, when they fail, as in the case of the coronavirus, what you'll see is the Communist Party central leadership will be like, hey, this has nothing to do with us. It was those local officials. So you get a thing where nobody really knows what's going on. And this is what's so tragic when you see a lot of Western media praising how China battled the coronavirus. One, they're accepting numbers at face value that should not be. And two, it's the system is why, the authoritarian system in China is why there is a pandemic. It's not a system to be praised. Most of the authoritarian measures they took didn't actually help anyone. This actually happened. They were welding families into their homes.
Well, you showed some video on one of your episodes of how they were rounding the Chinese people up, and let's say it was disturbing to say the least. Just going when they saw someone just grabbing them. I think you had some, I don't know, some video of tying up a guy to like a lamppost, or, I mean, it was pretty brutal. They weren't fooling around if they thought you had it.
And anyone who might have been from Wuhan. But that's why it's so sad to see like American media being like, hey, that's a system we should have. Really? Is that what they're really saying? That like we want that in the United States? That's not a way to, I mean, because look at Taiwan. Taiwan is a free and open, transparent, democratic society, and they've handled it better than any other country. We should look to Taiwan. But China and the World Health Organization are trying really hard to make sure we don't look at Taiwan.
So you've probably gotten to the point of, in all these years of reporting, you probably get to the point where whatever comes out of China, you immediately probably go in the other direction and go, I don't believe a word they're saying.
I think that would be wise for anyone. Everything that comes out, it's the party line. You know, you can't trust it. And there's certainly no independent media in China to fact check it.
So do you feel in your news reporting, do you feel like the U.S. is doing a good job in preventing this pandemic from the president downward?
The epidemic. So the travel ban early on, that was a great decision. Unfortunately, the United States is in a situation where, you know, our supply chain is in China. This isn't the president's fault. This is a systemic problem that's been around for a long time. The fact that, you know, we don't have masks because they're all made in China. Like, this did not happen overnight. In general, I think the U.S. response has been not perfect, but it's been decent enough when dealing with just, you know, the kind of lies and misinformation that are coming out from China, from the World Health Organization. But yeah, it's a scary time. No country is really prepared for something like this, which is why it really would have been nice if the Chinese Communist Party did not make it a situation. But as I've been trying to tell people for 8 years, what happens in China does affect Americans.
No more Roach on Florida TV.